Best movie ever made. Roadhouse.
All you have to do is follow 3 simple rules. 1, never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected.
Polar bear fell on me.
2, take it outside. 3, be nice.
Don't look like much to me.
Opinions vary.
Were you saying Roadhouse is the best movie ever made?
Ever fucking made. Ever.
Okay.
All right.
Not too bad for as many
that's
tries
something.
as that took.
Well, I mean, you can only do it once. That's all that matters. Welcome to Movie Boners,
Hey,
everybody. We're over the other side of our 100th episode, so it's all downhill from here. That was kind of our peak, and now we're just on our way down.
Way to sell the show.
Welcome. This is going to be the best show we've ever had, actually. Just kidding.
101! Dude. Oh my god, now I'm just burping like crazy.
How's it going over there? Are you all right?
Well, it was a shitty week at work. I got home, I drank a beer, and now I am burping that beer before I try tonight's beer.
What beer did you get for tonight?
Well,
while we're on the subject.
I can't remember if I've had this one before or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Don't worry, nobody will judge whether you did or not.
Well, that's weird. I don't know if I like it or not. Anyways, I tried to stay on theme. All right.
Okay.
Tried to stay on theme.
Good. I'm proud of you.
Trying to find some beers to be on theme can get a little difficult because I'm a little more limited on beer selection down here because Texas is more for like the cheap beer pong beer. No offense, guys. Yeah. Maybe a little bit. But I think I found one. I think you'll appreciate it. I'm drinking Fresh Kicks.
Nice. I do appreciate that.
It's a hazy IPA from Real Ale Brewing Company.
Okay.
I don't know. It's somewhere here in Texas, but I don't know where.
All other ales are imposters, it sounds like.
Apparently.
That's the only real
It's
one.
like the lightest hazy IPA I think I've ever had.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I also have a hazy IPA from the Avery Brewing Company in Boulder, Colorado. It's barely on theme, but I tried my best. In honor of the Double Deuce, I got a double-digit hazy IPA. And that's the closest I could do. But it's very good. And it's a 10%, so we're going to have some time.
I appreciate that. That's a good on point. That's on theme. That's on theme.
Thank you.
Pretty good.
Thank you.
Pretty good.
You have to give me leniency because I give you a lot of leniency in your beer selections.
Wow.
Have to, like you said. Wow. All right. What next? Do you want to check in on the draft?
We might as well. Wow. For
episode
episode 101, we're a little stumbly today. Don't judge us, folks.
Yeah.
It's been a week for both of us.
It's true. Yeah. It's not really our fault. It just is what it is. Okay, so let me share what we have going on in the draft. I know everybody's dying to know. If you've been following on social media, you've been a little bit updated. Dustin lost the lead from last week that he had. As soon as Glass Onion came out at an 8.0 now, that went away. So I am in the lead there. He still has $1.5 billion ahead of me in the box office, though. 1.6 almost. And so, so we've been talking about how we're going to solve that tiebreaker problem. I also officially moved down Asteroid City, even though it doesn't have a new date yet. But I do think Operation Fortune, they're talking about streaming it in January. And then the other one was something else.
But if they stream it in January, that doesn't help you.
No, it certainly does not. So I moved it out of this year and into next year. So everything above the line counts and everything below the line does not. There's one movie left, which is the big one, the big kahuna.
Which they're saying has to make like $2 billion just to break even.
Yeah, it has to be like the the 4th or 5th highest grossing movie of all time just to break even, which is good motivation for it to gross a lot of money. So that could be good. I just need 1.5 to tie you. So hopefully they get that in 3 weeks. I kind of doubt it, but it's possible.
I mean, I'm a little worried that it might actually happen.
I mean, it will have to make more than Top Gun Maverick made in its entire run in order for me to tie or beat you.
Yeah.
But the other piece of news is that Top Gun Maverick is coming back to theaters.
I know.
For 2
I
weeks.
saw that and was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, for like I think 2 weeks before it goes to streaming, and also before Avatar comes out, they're like, you know what? Let's just put Top Gun back in theaters. And I'm like, thank you very much, sir.
And I'm like, God damn it!
It is the highest grossing movie of the year so far,
Mhm.
so we'll see how that goes. It hasn't been enough to save me yet, just on its own, though. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Really good.
We're very, very close. We're in the last month of the year. One movie left, last month of the year. In a couple episodes, we're doing our 2023 draft, and I've been preparing like crazy for that. So I hope you bring your A game to that draft, because I've learned a lot of lessons this year.
You're so like angsty about this draft.
I have a lot of regrets about how I did it because I made a lot of mistakes, but I feel like I learned from them, and next year's going to go much, much better.
I made a ton of mistakes. Tons.
Not drafting the Batman in the first round was number one.
Still can't
Not
believe I
drafting
didn't do
Top
that.
Gun Maverick.
I still can't believe. If there's one thing that I said at the start of the year that I feel like I wish I could go back and just slap me. You know that Batman hitting Robin meme?
Yeah.
It's what I'm like. I think Top Gun will have a big opening and then it'll just die off and not be that great.
Yeah.
And then I went and saw it and it just like dominated the box office, and it is still regarded by many to possibly be the best movie release this year.
Yeah. It's the highest rated in the draft for sure. Although The Fablemans is very close at 8.2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting last couple weeks. I am excited to go see Violent Night. I'm going to go watch Santa Claus Kill Some Bad Guys.
Yeah.
That should be
Yeah,
fun.
the one with that guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah. That should be a fun one. Which I'm kind of like, I bet it's not that great, but it might be super fun.
Yeah. Well, I always enjoy all those kinds of movies. Like there was Santa Slay, Slay, with Goldberg, I think, the wrestler. There's all those kinds of movies from the 90s that I just love. So it feels like that.
Yeah. Speaking of new movies, you watch anything new and
what? Just and? Yes, I did actually watch 2 new things.
Cool.
One I know that you have seen, so we could talk about that. Although I think you already kind of did. I watched Don't Worry, Darling, finally. That's kind of how I felt. So I wanted to like it. Like started it, and I was like, this isn't too bad. I was trying honestly to like it, even in spite of the like bad press that it got. But the longer it went on, the more I was like, I don't like this movie.
Now I won't spoil it, folks, but that ending, right? Just made you like.
Yeah. I didn't like the ending. I didn't like the last half. I feel like there's a version of that movie that could be made that would be good. Mm-hmm. Like it has all the pieces for it, but I think that it's just edited in a way, and if you dropped some of the storyline and replaced it with something else with a couple of reshoots, you could have a good movie. But overall, I think it's a giant Stepford Wives ripoff for one thing, which is kind of not great.
Not even
and it's also
decent ripoff. Like
it does it in the worst ways. Yeah, so I wanted to like it, but I don't like it. I did enjoy trying to imagine Shia LaBeouf in that role instead of Harry Styles.
I think it would have been a totally different movie.
I do too. I think that would have been better.
Yeah,
honestly. And it's not just because I don't like Harry Styles, although that's part of it. I do think that in general he would have brought something completely different.
I think he would have given that character a little more intensity. I think Harry Styles was just kind of, I don't know. A hot take. What? Who fucking cares? Why do we give a shit about Harry Styles? So, like...
Yeah, he's one of those people that became famous and then will always be famous just because he was famous, and then he just gets put into stuff because he's a name people know.
Yeah, and because he's like super, like, ooh, I'll be part of the woke culture. Anyways, he bothers me. I don't like Harry Styles. Don't at
when
me.
they did that, like,
shit.
when they did that Venice Film Fest, and there was all that like drama about, oh, did he spit on Chris Pine?
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that stuff. He was like wearing the silliest outfits the whole time. He dresses in such a weird way.
Yeah,
but that's like the thing.
I think it's all for just publicity.
I'm sure.
I think the dude's full of shit. Don't add us. I don't care.
Yeah. And then the other new thing I watched was Disenchanted, the sequel to Enchanted.
I haven't watched it yet. It was on my list, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Okay. If you like the first one, I think you'll like it. It was fun seeing them come back.
Yeah.
The story and the angle of it was really fun. It was good. It was totally perfectly fine.
Was
movie.
it more enjoyable than Hocus Pocus 2?
Yes.
Cool.
I think so.
Cool.
I would say so. I'm a bigger fan of Enchanted than I am of Hocus Pocus. That might have something to do with it.
Which I think for people who have been with us for a while probably know that, because we both had Enchanted on our family movie or musical episode. It was one of those episodes that we both had it.
I think it was on family? Because the musical one we said no Disney.
Oh yeah,
and it was Disney.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise it would have been on there.
I love Enchanted. It's so good.
Me too. It's great. What about you? Have you seen
I watched a handful of new things.
Yeah.
I did go see The Fabelmans, and it is
How is that? Is it great?
Excellent. It is very good. I think the craziest part about it is how autobiographical, how actually autobiographical it really is. Steven Spielberg, I guess, really tried to stay true to what growing up and what kind of storytelling through filmmaking did for him and helped him get through some pretty big life moments and stuff. Very cool movie, very fun movie. If you are a fan of Steven Spielberg, like not just, oh, I like his movies, but like you've kind of followed how he makes films, what his approach to it is and all that. There's a lot of Spielberg Easter eggs, more in terms of his filming style.
Okay.
Which for me, like when I did video productions way too long ago, like Spielberg style was the one that I kind of learned and followed, and it was fun catching all the little things in it. Fabelmans was great. If you want just a movie that is just it's calming. It's a calm movie. Yeah. It's very good, very well acted. I think it's funny. It still kind of weirded me out, and I think the rest of the audience, that Seth Rogen is in it, and he does a pretty good job.
Okay.
But I have found kind of like humor in, he hasn't done a single piece of like publicity for the film and all that, and I can't help but wonder if like Spielberg was all, I like having you in the movie. Like,
don't ruin it.
You smoke too much weed, so
yeah. You're not exactly what we're going for.
Right. But he does a good job on the movie. I mean, the acting is stellar in this movie, which you don't go to a Spielberg movie figuring like, oh, the acting's going to suck. No, it's really good.
Oh, for sure.
Fabelmans I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I went and saw...
And I love Paul Dano especially.
Yes. Oh, he's awesome in it. It's so... I loved watching him in The Fabelmans, where he plays just kind of a very intelligent, quiet dad who's just trying to do what he needs to do. Considering he ends the year with this role from how he started the year for all of us, where he plays like a Zodiac killer, serial killer Riddler. Very polar opposite, but very fun to see the range. I went and saw The Menu.
Okay.
Which
I've heard a lot about it, but I have no idea really anything about it.
It is not for everybody. I would say it's not everybody's cup of tea.
All right, you can turn the podcast off now.
Yeah, sorry guys. But no, I loved it. It was weird. It was my kind of like, Jake, I think you would dig it. It's just so offbeat. Very fun. Very dark humor. Very dark humor.
That piques my interest a lot more than it originally did.
Yeah.
When I've seen like stills and small promos and just basic things, I'm like, oh, it's like a chef movie. It sounds boring.
Yeah,
to me.
it's a little bit more than just a chef movie. It's cool. I think you would dig it.
Cool.
I watched Slumberland on Netflix with Jason Momoa.
What's Slumberland? Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think I have heard of this.
If you want just a good family fun adventure film.
Yeah. It's where it's like fantasy where he's got like the whole outfit.
They go into dream worlds. It was awesome. I loved it. Like when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, that was enjoyable. And then I started thinking about it and told some people about it and was like, no, this was a great movie. I think everyone should watch it. It was super fun.
Okay.
And then the last new thing that I watched was Strange World, that new Disney animated that just came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed things about that.
If you want like a super preachy woke just to be woke for woke's sake.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess you
it's
can
like
go
what
see
everybody's afraid.
Strange World.
Everybody's afraid Disney's becoming that, and it sounds like it's not helping.
I think it's the final proof that, yep, this is what Disney cares about now.
Okay.
I didn't hate it. Like, it's got some fun little moments. But even my daughter, who I went and saw it, she was like, I thought you would think it's a little preachy. And I was like, I did.
That's amazing.
But I didn't hate it. Like, it was all right. The animation is cool. I really like the animation. But,
yeah.
And then I think I watched something else new, but I can't remember. So, and that was all I wrote down.
Okay. That sounds good. Before we get into the episode, I had one more thing I wanted to bring up and ask you about. Kind of like a little movie news thing. This is not new news, but you and I haven't talked about it. And also we haven't told any of the listeners about it. So, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Obviously, you know that DC has shaken up everything and they have made James Gunn and some other guy the co-CEOs of DC Studios, not just movies, but TV and games as well, animation movies and all that stuff as well. So I'm curious what you think about this. Are you hopeful? Are you excited? We haven't talked about it.
We haven't talked about this?
But it's been like a month or so.
Oh my God. How have we talked about this?
Not like really. I think that we've both posted maybe small things on the Instagram or something. But we haven't actually like aired it out. What do you think of that? Is that good?
I could have sworn I talked to you about it. I am hopeful. I'm texting your wife, by the way.
What is she doing? Tell her to stop interrupting the podcast.
No, that's my fault because I totally forgot to reply to her yesterday.
Oh.
And then talking to you, I was like, oh shit. I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I was...
all right,
I am
good.
hopeful. I think James Gunn is a good choice. I think my only reservation, and it's actually a small one, because I think James Gunn is going to approach it with the mentality of the fan base and with the mentality of like trying to stick true to the comics and not worrying so much about other stuff, which is how he approached the Guardians of the Galaxy, which I know some people are like, but the Guardians is so funny. It is, but it's also true to source. The Guardians comics have a lot of humor. It's supposed to be kind of silly with darker moments, which he has done a masterful job of doing. I'm hopeful for it. I think he's going to do all right with it. I think I think it's off to a really good start with Black Adam coming out,
Mhm.
and Gunn being, Henry Cavill is our Superman. He's already come out and been like, we're not doing this where we're going to have 4 or 5 Batmans. Like, we're going to have one dude. We might
Mhm.
talk about, the multiverse stuff, but we don't want to focus on multiverse things. We want to focus on our
Yeah.
our DC world, which I actually really appreciate. I think that's the first good step, just being clear that he's not approaching this with, we're going to be Marvel where we have to
Right.
focus on this. He wants to just focus on singular stories, maybe meld in some crossovers. The big one he
Mhm.
has talked about, which is kind of crazy thinking, but he does want to do a Marvel and DC crossover. Could be
Yeah.
fun. It could also be a giant train wreck, considering the
It
only
could be.
characters that we really care to see crossover are no longer in Marvel. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a massive train wreck. I don't know what that
and
would
it,
look
it
like.
could never come to fruition. It's just stuff
Yeah.
that they're talking about. But I think Gunn is a good choice to have, hopefully. Mainly just because I think he's going to approach it from the same the same way that he did Guardians of just,
Yeah.
I want to bring the source material to life. The fan base wants this. I think it's cool that he has come out and been like, we want to show different characters so
Yeah.
that the audiences
I
don't see the same 4.
I think that's good, but I think that there needs to be, I think it'll take it with a grain of
Yeah,
salt.
yeah.
Like he did that a lot with the Suicide Squad. He's like, I commend him for loving all of these different oddball characters that are generally small, like Polka Dot Man, but also I don't know that hardly anybody cares about Polka Dot
Right,
Man.
right.
And so
But I think
you still need to be able to foster those titans
I think
of
he's
Batman
gonna
and
do
Superman.
well with the heavy hitters. Obviously, the Trinity will be the
Mhm.
big ones. But I think splicing in or interjecting some of the smaller side characters, that could be a lot of fun to see. Um,
Mhm.
I have hopes for his meetings with Dwayne Johnson, because Johnson has a
Mhm.
very clear, and because of the success of Black Adam, Johnson also has a
Mhm.
little or even more pull
Yeah.
in what he wants. So, and Johnson has been coming out and been like, we don't give a shit about critics. We don't give a shit about Marvel. We're trying to listen to the fans for once, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
Now we just got to see if they follow through with
Yeah.
what they're saying.
Yeah, I think that would be the best thing, is to just focus on the fans, especially because it came out recently that Marvel's writers literally say, if you are a fan of the source material, that's like a red flag for them.
Right.
They want like new stuff, which is scary to me. I certainly want people who know and love and care about those things to make them, because everybody who's watching them also knows and cares about those things.
That kind of mentality only works if it's brand new material for young generations. But for
Yeah.
Marvel writers to come out and say, we don't want fans in the comic books to really go see the movie, you're kind of you're alienating 85% of your audience, who are
Right.
all adults who grew up
Mhm.
reading these stories. So don't do that. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah. The one thing I'm the most I guess tentative about is the idea of incorporating a universe. And so DC has been very disjointed. They've had a separate TV thing and separate animated movie thing and a separate game thing, and then the movies themselves have kind of been separate because they have the Batman and Joker, and those don't have anything to do with anything. But so they're saying they want those things to now all be connected. I worry that it's too late for that.
Yeah.
That should have been done 10, 15 years ago, but
Right.
now people are burned out on it, and they would rather have individual things. I think that the Marvel doing that, people liked it for a while, but now it's too much
It's too much content.
Keep up with.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
When we did our big Marvel, I'm fine with. I mean, it's exhausting, but I am fine with just the Infinity Saga. right? Like it's 22
I
movies.
I can deal with over 20 movies.
Right, 22 movies. And it told a really cool story for the most part.
Yeah.
Like it's done really well for the most part, minus
Mhm.
a few hiccups, but that happens. And it has a great conclusion. Marvel has totally fucked up and lost their way. I'm with you. I think DC. I think doing fun little cameos or maybe crossover with the big guys here and there, cool.
Yeah. I think it's good to connect them for the people that care, but don't depend on it so much that you're lost if you didn't watch that series on HBO Max
we don't
that
need,
nobody really watched.
We don't need Batman showing up in every DC movie. We don't even need his name to be really dropped in every DC film. We don't need, this will sound ironic, but we don't need Superman flying in at the end of every DC film now. Granted, he's got a head finally. Thank you, Henry. But we don't need DC trying to like desperately keep everything completely tied together. Like you can have separate stories. You can treat it like an actual comic book where every now and again a character might run into each other or, have to fight each other or fight with one another. You can do that periodically, but apparently it's a 10-year plan that they are mapping out, which I know everyone's like, oh my God, that's crazy. Reality is that's like, we might get 6 movies.
Yeah, they're just starting it. It's going to take a while to get it up and running.
Yeah. And honestly, no one knows still if it's going to continue the Snyderverse, but kind of tweaked, or if Black Adam is officially the start of the whole new DC run, which I kind of think Black Adam is the new beginning.
Yeah.
So
probably, but it's tricky. It'll be like you have the original Shazam and then you have Black Adam, and now you have another Shazam coming out. But is that going to have anything to do with that? Does that matter anymore?
And
Aquaman and Flash are coming out next year. Do they matter anymore?
It's all over the place, and it doesn't help that they keep like putting Viola Davis. Nothing against Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. She's awesome. She's perfect for the character. But she keeps popping up too, and it's like, I thought Gunn's Suicide Squad wasn't necessarily connected, but it is connected. But then Peacemaker is now like canon. Like what is happening?
I heard about that.
It's all a mess. I think they're going to have to iron it out, hopefully sooner than later. If anything, maybe just pull the good old Hollywood trick of how do you correct plot hole and all that. Just throw in a couple quick lines of dialogue to be like, and that's the explanation. Move on.
Right.
We might need that.
Is it Thank You for Smoking, where they're like, how do we have these guys smoking in space? We'll just throw in a line of dialogue. Hey, thank God we invented that thing that lets us smoke in space.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's perfect writing.
So I'm cautiously optimistic.
That's fair.
But more
I would
on
say
the
I'm a little bit
side.
I'm a little bit more jaded and skeptical, but I also think Warner Brothers and Discovery have been rudderless for so long that anything is having any plan is probably better than what they've been doing. So I'm cool with it. Until the first movie come out that sucks, and then I'm off the train.
It's like, God damn it.
Yeah. All right. Now, I'm sorry for that aside, but I needed to get it out there. I was very curious, and I thought it'd be better to talk about it here than just text you. So
fair enough.
So today's episode is pretty fun. I think it's fun. I don't know how you ended up with it. I haven't talked to you since we kind of assigned watching this movie, and I know you haven't seen it before, so it could be anything.
I came very close to texting you the couple times that I watched it, and then I was like, no, you can't, because we're going to talk about it on the podcast, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Keep it fresh.
So if you didn't stick around for the last, or like the end of our last episode where we told you what today is, we are going with a classic 80s. I don't even know what to really call it, but
It's kind of an action movie. It's kind of a romance movie.
it's
I guess a lot of great action movies are romance movies. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's a weird kind of
it's an interesting
I
movie.
think.
It's
Different.
It's an interesting movie. Folks, we are talking about Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. The beloved Roadhouse that I feel like I hear people love it, and I was like, really? Roadhouse? You
Dude.
love Roadhouse? Is that even possible?
The
Now that I've seen it, I could kind of get it. So here, I guess off the top, general feelings. We're going to talk all about Roadhouse. We're going to spoil the shit out of Roadhouse. So if you haven't seen it, a movie from 1989, you should go see it. It was fun. It was worth watching, I would say. It was definitely a good time to watch. But before we get into spoilers, just generally, how did you feel? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? What do you think about Roadhouse?
I did enjoy it. It was weird. So I watched it a couple times. Okay. First time I'm watching it, I was like an hour into it. And this was when I was almost texting to be like, how the fuck are we going to deep dive into this movie? Like, there is nothing to deep dive into.
Yeah, it's very surface for a long time.
I was like, there's no metaphors. There's no deep meanings. There's nothing philosophical. Like, what are we going to talk about? And I'll be honest, that first viewing, I was kind of like, I don't know if I like this movie or not. I was very just kind of like, I don't know how I feel, because it has such a reputation. It's been put on such a huge pedestal that it was interesting to try and figure out, where's this hype coming from. By the time the credits rolled, I was just kind of sitting on my couch and I was like, all right, I guess now I start doing it. Because preparing for the show, for me, I watched the movie.
Peek behind the curtain.
Yep. So I'll pop the movie on. I try to, I'll have my phone and the computer with me so I can do multiple, tidbit searches and all that. But the first viewing I really try to just watch the movie. And then the second viewing is usually the one where I don't really watch it. It's just playing in the background while I'm reading all the little stuff.
Yeah.
Unless I hate the movie, in which case I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to do all my other stuff.
Yeah. I kind of do that too, where I put it on again in hopes that I catch something new or notice something I missed or whatever.
And when I was doing my little learning about the movie and I typed one question into Google when it ended. Okay. It was, why is Roadhouse so popular?
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to ask it for shitty reasonings or reasons or any, nothing.
You're like, who cares about Roadhouse?
I was genuinely just like, okay, where does the following come from? What are people attaching so deeply to this movie?
Yeah. It's kind of like a cult movie, and so you're curious about who are these cult followers?
Not just a
that
cult
actually
film, fans of Roadhouse are fans. They regard it as the greatest film ever made to date, and it's that's a bold statement. I get it. Some of our all-time favorites might not be for everybody, sure,
right?
But Roadhouse,
right? Oh yeah. I mean, you can say that at least facetiously about Die Hard or something. You'd be like, Die Hard is the greatest movie of all time. People are like, I get why you like Die Hard, but Roadhouse is a different movie.
And then I came across an article that I was like, oh, I get it, because I kept thinking about Roadhouse and I kept thinking oh, but that scene was cool. Oh, that was fun. And I was like, I think I actually enjoyed it, but I didn't realize I was enjoying it when I was watching it. It was very weird. Very weird. So I found this article. Let me bring it up real quick. It was on Bro Bible. It's called Remembering Roadhouse. Super short article, but this guy put it into perspective where Roadhouse is super nostalgic, but not for obvious reasons. It was super nostalgic because it puts the viewers, especially, don't at us, but especially males, into this mindset of when you were a little kid watching action films or watching really any male-led film, the lead would like go into some town, make this huge impact on the town, save it, and then move on. And that was almost like ingrained into our brains of that was the dream. You were going to be a hero, and then you would move on, and you'd have cool one-liners, and your reputation would precede you.
Yeah, it's like that meme, the masculine urge to show up in a town and save it, and then ride off into the sunset.
Which is perfect, because then I also found another article where it was like, people love Roadhouse because it was a modernized Western. And I was like, well, that's weird. How do you call that? And as soon as I was like thinking, like, how is that a Western? That like light bulb slapped to the back of the head happened. I was like, oh my fucking God. This is straight Western. 100% it's a Western. And the moment I had that thought, Jake, I was like, no, I love Roadhouse. I love Roadhouse.
I had the exact same realization. I kind of came across it differently, but I also was like thinking about the movie, thinking about the story. I was like, why is this so good? And then I was like, I kind of get it. It's a view into a culture that most people don't really know anything about, like being a bouncer of a club and all that. And you get to see how he like approaches it with like a mentality. And I think that's very interesting. But I ended up getting to that same exact point where I was like, you know what? It is exactly like a Western in the fact that he comes to town. He doesn't don a sheriff's badge, but he might as well.
He may as well. His reputation is all over the place.
Yeah, and he starts cleaning it up. He starts kicking people out. There's a gang of bandits or outlaws that he has to like deal with. And it's like, I don't think that neo-Westerns have been a thing until like the last 10, 20 years, but they've become very popular. This may be like among the first neo-Westerns.
This may have started the trend without ever actually meaning to be that. Everything I read about it was like, there was nothing I found ever said that the directors or the writers intended for like this kind of, because it flopped at the box office, but you would never believe that now, considering how popular and huge the movie is.
It's gotten more and more popular as time's gone on, for sure.
Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun.
Yeah, and the people that have made it, directors and writers and the people that wrote the story and stuff, they haven't done much else that's very like notable. So it's hard to say like, oh yeah, they like this or they're good at this or they have these kind of ideas or things they like. Oh, I really have no idea if they meant to do this or not, but they did. They accomplished something pretty darn good. I do feel like I enjoyed it. Yeah. Like I was watching, I was like, I get it. Like I get why people like this movie. It's a fun time. It's got everything. It's got fights. It's got romance. It's got sex. It's got nudity. It's got all the stuff
It's got a villain that you hate because he's a total douche. You want him to get his ass whooped. His henchmen are the dumbest henchmen I've seen in a film in a long time, but they're part of the lore. I lost my train of thought right there. Yeah, the second time I watched it, I kept thinking, I wanted to text you so bad to be like, dude, if you haven't gotten around to watching this yet, this is your kind of movie. I was like, I thought of you the whole second time I watched it. I was just like, yeah, Jake is probably watching this right now being like, this is awesome.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. Because as I was watching, I was like, I definitely enjoy everything that's happening. Like there are parts that are weird for sure. And I'm like questioning, I guess, why. I think I have some theories about it. We'll get into that. But overall, I definitely think it's a really fun movie, and it does all the things that I would like a movie to do, especially a movie from the late 80s. It's a fun time. And like you said, there is a nostalgia factor, even though, okay, so spoiler alert, we said last week that we've both never seen this movie. I realized as I was watching it, I have seen this before. And I didn't realize it until we got to the throat rip.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember that. I was like, I thought that was from a different movie, but when he rips out the guy's throat, I was like, whoa, I have seen this. I don't know why I remember the throat rip and not, because I saw it when I was like a teenager. I don't remember. Well, I don't know why I remember the throat rip and not like the sex and boobs and all the other stuff going on
in this movie. There were so many boobs.
But for some reason, that guy ripping, or when Patrick Swayze rips out that guy's throat, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that being awesome, and me being like, I can't believe that happened. So I have seen it. I just don't remember anything about the movie other than that. So it was fun to like revisit it and relearn.
Well, I realized that I was correct. I had never watched the full thing, but I remember seeing a couple of the scenes when I was a little kid. Not the throat rip. It was like one of the bar fights. It was a bar fight with the boot where he tells him like, you're too stupid to... Oh, fuck, I forgot the line. You know what I'm talking about. I remember seeing that scene and thinking it was hilarious that he's telling this guy trying to kill him that he's dumb. But yeah, I never watched the full thing. And
there's some good lines.
And I had to laugh because I was also, thinking, man, had I actually seen Roadhouse as a kid, I definitely would not have seen the R-rated theatrical cut. I would have watched the very censored, toned down
TV version.
Yeah, TV version. So I was like, I would have remembered all the violence because the fight scenes are fun. They're ridiculous, but they're fun. I would have remembered a guy's throat getting torn out by hand because, damn.
Who doesn't?
Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely would have remembered that many boobs in a film. Like,
yeah,
I would have remembered that.
Yeah. But you said that there's like a nostalgia factor to it, even though I don't remember seeing it. Watching it now, I still kind of like that nostalgia factor of a movie from the 80s. And it has kind of all those things you talked about, where there's a guy who comes to town. He's like the hero. He saves the town. He goes off. It reminds me of like so many movies that are, even movies that aren't good, but I enjoy them, like Steven Seagal movies from the 80s and 90s. It's like, yeah, it's a fun time to see him come in Under Siege and kick ass and then have boobs in a movie and all this stuff. It's a great time. So it's just like, I guess, a movie of that era that I don't know if it would work well later, and they are trying to remake it.
I was going to say we're going to find out because they apparently want to remake it with Jake Gyllenhaal, which nothing against
Conor
him,
McGregor of all people.
When I was watching it, knowing like, oh yeah, they're wanting to remake this, like there's no way they're gonna remake this movie. Like they'll do it.
You could make like 20% of the story and then replace everything else because it would not work.
They're gonna fuck it all up. It's gonna be too focused on like the club scene, which is gonna get real annoying. I think this will sound like mean towards pretty much every actor. I don't mean for that, but Patrick Swayze at that point in his career, coming off a couple like massive romantic films, because they're not even really romantic comedies, but romantic films. Like he was the face of romance for a while. He does this.
He's a dreamboat.
He does Ghost, and then he does Point Break, like
and Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, I mean, he was an icon. He had this whole. I've been drinking, so I lost my word. He had a certain kind of swagger for that era.
Yeah.
And only he could have delivered like the scenes in Roadhouse where he's telling people to be nice until it's time to not be nice, which is such a like okay kind of line, but you buy it. You're like all for it because he just had that ability to sell that character. He was the only actor to do that, and I think trying to replicate it, and they're gonna try to replicate it. They're probably gonna give the same dialogue to someone else, and it's gonna come across very like, ooh, that's cringe worthy all over the place, and not in a fun like campy way. I don't think a remake's gonna work. It's not a movie I think should be remade, and I just watched it. But I think it holds its own where it needed to hold it, and it's kind of proven.
Yeah,
like
I think it's a product of its time. It's a product of Patrick Swayze at that era, like you said. He's at his peak.
Yeah.
I think that so much of Roadhouse seems to be, at least when I was watching it, I don't know like for sure, but when I was watching it, I was interpreting this scene in this movie. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Patrick Swayze is who he is. He has the status that he has. And so that's why this romance scene is like going on so long, because there's a lot of like Patrick Swayze swagger throughout the movie, in the sense that he is that guy who can just be very quiet and calm and powerful, and he is really good in this role. He's perfect in this role, but he also, like, they also give him the opportunity to make the audience happy in the sense that there are going to be ladies who watch this movie and really enjoy the fact that he's a shredded guy with a mullet, with tight jeans, who is just in control of the situation, kicks ass when he needs to, is very gentle and romantic when he needs to. Like, this movie is just like the Patrick Swayze show the whole time.
Yeah, he kind of personifies like the male in Roadhouse. Like how you just described it. He's gentle, he's fierce when he needs to be. He can hold his own. He's confident. He doesn't have to engage in arguments or fights. He can just kind of sit back quietly, but he still has an impact on the room around him. It's kind of like, I mean, that's what us guys have always wanted, right? We've always, that's right. Like, we want to be that guy where we can walk in a room and people are like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's him.
Yeah. He's a guy not to fuck with, but when you do fuck with him, he can hold his own.
Right.
Like, that's the goal. Yeah. This movie feels like Dirty Dancing for dudes, in the sense that if you take Dirty Dancing and you replace all the dance sequences with fight scenes, and then you take all the romance scenes and leave them as romance scenes, then you get Roadhouse, because there's a lot of fighting, so much fighting that's just put throughout the movie that it keeps you excited and interested in it. But also there's a lot of like romance and like Patrick Swayze.
There's a ton of romance
and sex and nudity and all this stuff. It's got everything for everybody. I see why people like it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think there's any like super deep meaning to it. I think the complete allure or connection people have to the movie is just it obviously is making audiences feel very specific ways. It clearly did it to you and I, where we both like immediately just kind of connected going, oh yeah, like that was what I wanted to be. And to me, when I had the Western connection, that really sealed it for me. It was very much like, oh, this is great. Like, I really, really dug this movie. It made me feel...
That's an archetype that we love, obviously.
It put me back in that kind of childhood mentality of like, you'd watch a movie and then you'd go and play in your room. I don't know. I used to do this where I'd like go play in my room and then pretend that I was that character or
Oh,
a
100%.
character very similar, and I'd be able to
Yeah.
create whole stories out of it.
The amount of times I stood on the arm of our couch and jumped off, wishing I could fly because I just watched Hook.
Right.
That's exactly my entire childhood.
You're not gonna fly,
I just have
Jake.
to
Watch
I
me.
just have to think a happy thought is all I have to do.
Yeah, I just thought like there was some very interesting things to me. It was weird for me seeing a young Sam Elliott who still doesn't look that
Yeah.
young.
He doesn't look that young, but Sam Elliott is like, he's my favorite part of this movie. He's a dude. Like he's incredible. He's just the way that they set it up in the beginning, which I kind of missed the first time I watched it, and then noticed the second time when Patrick Swayze tries to get hired by that guy to like come clean up his bar. He's like, well, I wanted the best. And Patrick Swayze is like, well, I'm not the best. Wade Garrett's the best. And Wade Garrett is Sam Elliott's character.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, Wade Garrett's getting a little old, but he's still the best. When he shows up and he's just like, I've never seen Sam Elliott like this. And I was like, Sam Elliott is like long hair, kind of ripped, kind of like ready to bust some faces in. He's the coolest I've ever seen him.
We grew up in a time where Sam Elliott had a pretty distinct stature in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether we watched a lot of his stuff or not, you heard the name Sam Elliott and you immediately were just like, that's a guy that like he just commands respect. Like he's a guy. Like you said, he's a dude. He's the guy.
And it's mostly about his voice.
Right.
Like he's always had an incredible voice. But in this movie, he had like I don't know if it's the youth or what, but he had a presence and he was an absolute stud.
For me, when he showed up and like when he finally has a couple scenes, I just sat back and was like, oh, I get it. I 100% finally, after so many years, understand Sam Elliott's allure. Like, I get it. It clearly had to have been this movie that made the whole world just be like, Sam fucking Elliott.
Yeah. I did see a thing that this is the movie's like most recognized for, that people will stop him on the street for. And I was like, I didn't understand it until I saw it. I was like, I love Sam Elliott and all of the other things he's done. But this one, I'm like, you are a stud. like I totally
get it now. I mean, mustache or not, this dude just like, I would not want to toil with this guy because he'd probably kick the shit out of me, old or not.
And he's a lot like Patrick Swayze's character Dalton, where he's this tough like guy who's he's not what you would expect when you think like, oh, I'm a bouncer, I'm the best bouncer of all time. You expect like a jacked dude. And they say in the beginning, that guy, when he's talking to Patrick Swayze's character Dalton, he's like, oh, you're a lot smaller than I thought you would be. And I think that's very intentional in the sense that you don't have to be jacked in order to be a good bouncer. In fact, he fires like the most jacked dude because he doesn't have the right mentality to be a good bouncer. But I think that Sam Elliott's character is kind of the same way, where he's a little bit wiry, he's a little bit he's certainly slender, but he's shredded, but he also is like kind of light on his feet and romantic. He takes this girl out dancing. They go to lunch like with just the three of them, Dalton and
their whole
Wade,
like
and then that
lunch
girl.
to overnight just hang out or whatever it ended up being. I was like, this is a long time to hang out in a diner.
Yeah, and they go to lunch at a diner that's mostly empty, and then like Sam Elliott decides to dance with this girl who's interested in Patrick Swayze's character. He just asks her to dance, starts dancing around, and he's very I don't know. I've never been that guy, but I feel like it'd be cool to be that guy where you could just be.
He just has so much
bouncer.
I guess confidence. Like
Yeah,
He doesn't
maybe
give a
that's it.
shit. He knows, obviously, he's not going home with the girl, and he's doing a
Mhm.
lot of it. One, he wants to dance with her because it just seems like a good idea at the moment, but he's also
Yeah.
kind of jabbing Dalton a little bit, trying to get him to be like, come on, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sit back and just go with the flow, but maybe it's time
Mhm.
to, take a step forward or like make a move for the first time,
Yeah.
make
That's
the
true.
first move.
He's not trying to like hit on this girl or
Yeah.
take her home or whatever. Obviously, she's with Dalton, but he is just kind of being polite, being nice, being romantic. Like the number one rule of Roadhouse is you need to be nice
Right.
as long as possible until it's time to not be nice anymore, like you said. And he's very nice. He's being nice to her. He's showing her a good time and just being friendly. But yeah, then he is a friend of Dalton, and he's just kind of jabs him, like you said, of like something's eating you up. I need to know all that stuff. I mean, we'll probably get into it. So, is that a good place to start getting into
Yeah, we might
spoilers
as well.
about this movie? If you feel like that's up your alley, go watch it. If you've already watched it, good for you. We're going to spoil Roadhouse, a movie from 1989, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
Like you said, it is surface for a very long time, but I think there's substance to it for sure. At the same time, it's a weird movie. There's also things that are very weird that I want to talk about because I don't know that I understand it yet. So I kind of need to get your buy-in on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when so we're going to spoil it. That was the point of that. So caution, I guess. The point of when the movie opens and Patrick Swayze gets approached, he's at a very successful club. He's I guess the Cooler is the name of the guy who is the manager of all the bouncers. He doesn't generally bounce himself, but
that's like his actual, that's his real title. Where the mentality is not to really get into fights. Like he simply, his whole purpose is to take a bad situation, get it outside, and leave it there.
Yeah. And he's kind of the manager who has his actual bouncers take care of stuff most of the time. That's how it should go. A lot of things that should happen don't really happen in this movie. When he ends up like talking to all the guys and he's like, here are the rules. You need to be nice as long as you can. You shouldn't ever start fights in the bar. You should always take it outside. Almost all of the fights are happening in the bar.
By the way.
Yeah. And he's the one involved in them. So he's not like really managing or cooling anything. He's actually just trying to bounce dudes. It's just, it gets out of hand, I guess, is the point of the movie. But when he gets approached by the original owner of that club in, I think it's Kansas City, or outside Kansas City, and he tells him, hey, I need you to help me out. And he's like, sure. He gets paid $5,000 up front in advance and $500 a night.
Yeah.
I don't know how many nights this club is open a week. Or bar. It's a bar. It's open 7 nights a week. I bet you. He gets paid $500 a night.
A night.
Even in 2022 dollars, which are like ruined from inflation. But even in that, I'm like, holy shit, you're making a shitload of money.
He's making bank. And that's on top of all the renovations that the Double Deuce goes through the course of the film.
True.
Which is nuts. And the fact that he has a house band that plays.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he says that he like came into some money. He's trying to fix the place up, and it's just so. It's a local dive bar that's so unruly that he's really trying to clean up.
But before he gets hired to do this, I actually really like how the movie kind of introduces you, the audience, to how he handles bar fights, where he lets it kind of. Let's let it play out. Maybe it'll diffuse itself. It probably won't, but I'll just sit back. Yeah. When they kick the guy out, and they're like, "Let's fight," and he's like, "All right, outside." I was like, "All right, we're gonna let's start with a big old fight." And then he literally is just like, all right, bye. Like, goes back in the bar.
Mhm.
I actually thought that is such a great way, because the movie already, marketing had to have been
Yeah.
cutscenes of fights, cutscenes of violence.
Yeah. You're going to go to this movie to see people fighting in bars.
Right.
That's the point of the
And
movie.
when you're about to get like a big brawl, like Patrick Swayze, here we go. And he literally, like, he waves the guy off. He does the whole bye-bye and walks inside. Thought it was great. It's like, what a way. Like, that's a good tease. That means we're going to get something good soon, huh?
And it's kind of true to the bouncers subculture in the sense that that is their goal. Just get you outside, then you're not our problem anymore.
Right. Once you leave the door, you're on your own.
I also thought it was funny. The second time I watched it, I realized, because I knew the rules that he had laid down, which was like, you need to be prepared for anything. That's what he tells the guys later on in the movie. And then rewatching this first confrontation with that guy, and he's unruly, and then he has his bouncers like constrain him, and then the guy calms down and he lets him go, and then Dalton turns around and starts walking away, and the guy stabs him in the arm. I'm like, you should have been ready. You said be prepared for anything. If he stabbed you in the lungs, you would be dead. Like, what are you even doing? But it lets him take his shirt off, and he gets to stitch himself up, and you get that Patrick Swayze shredded look.
Stitched himself up. I was like, he just happens, like, is this such a regular thing for him? Where he's got the needle and thread, where he's like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, actually.
He's had a lot of practice. He's a professional bouncer. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I was very confused when the guy, the owner that has him come out to his bar, he says, oh, I'll fly you out. I have your plane ticket. And Dalton like waves him off. He's like, no, it's too dangerous to fly apparently. So he's going to drive out. I missed the part apparently. Maybe I was looking at my phone or something. I missed the part where he switches cars, because I saw him like drive up to the Double Deuce. And then I saw the part where he goes to buy another car. I was like, why on earth are you buying another car? I'm so confused. You just drove all the way across the country
so you missed
to
the
this
first
place.
time that he swapped cars. So he I forget what he does with the first car you see him with, but he gets rid of that.
Drives up. Yeah, he throws the keys to some guy on the street. Yeah. And the guy's like, what do you think, I'm a valet? He's like, no, you can keep it. And then he pulls the cover off of this really nice Mercedes in storage, and then drives to Kansas City in that. And then when he gets to Kansas City, he buys another car.
Immediately purchases another car.
I was so confused for a while, and then I thought about it more, and I was like, no, it makes a lot of sense, actually. That's pretty smart, because I don't really know. I mean, I guess I could guess why he got rid of that first car, that New York car, because people may know it's his car, and they will mess with him if they know it's his car. But it makes sense that when he takes this nice Mercedes, it's his personal car that he loves. He drives it all the way to Kansas City, and then when he gets there, he spends his $5,000 advance to buy a new, just used junk car that has really cool headlights that like pop open. I've never seen that before. But he just buys this like beat up car, and it makes kind of a lot of sense to me. I think it's really smart, because he drives this junker around as he drives it to the club, because then people will know that that's his car. And if they get upset with him because he kicked them out, and when they key it or when they break his windows, it won't matter, because it's not his like personal nice car.
Stab the car with a stop sign and just leave it sitting there. Yeah. That made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, all that does happen. And then I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
I was with you. I was very lost on, like, you don't have like a secret identity. Apparently everyone knows who you are.
Yeah, I thought I missed something. I was like, you just drove from New York to Kansas City, and now you're buying a new car. I was so confused for the longest time until I rewatched it.
Yeah, I caught on once they start destroying the car, because it's like bit by bit. It's not immediately totaled or anything like that. It's like shattered
they
windshield.
throw stuff through the windshield, and then he drives it around with a hole in the windshield for a while.
It's gonna be a while before we get a new windshield for you. That's fine. I'll take it. Yeah, him like coming in. I also thought I like the idea, and they don't really mention it for the rest of the movie, but when he agrees to take the job at the Double Deuce, he tells him like, okay, when we get your club to like your specs or whatever, I'm out. Like, so he does like it almost to me, and I could be wrong, but I kind of took that where his character, the reason so many people know him is not just reputation and word of mouth. He literally must go around the country to like, I guess, what is that? All those TV reality shows, he basically does that without a camera crew, where he goes, revamps the place, and then moves on.
He's not the most well known because he just like is the best at the top club in the world, and he stayed there for years and years. It's because he goes around the country and fixes clubs that are not able to keep their clientele in order. And so that's what he does. He's like, I will come work for you. I'll get $500 a night. But as soon as we get it like in order, I'm gone. Like I'm going to move on. And that's kind of like the desperado thing, where he's just going to ride off into the sunset and go to the next town.
Help save the town inadvertently, which becomes the mission, even though that's not how it started. And little did he know he'd be meeting a hot doctor. But that's to come. There's a lot to come, don't you worry.
When he first gets there and he's like rents that room from that old geezer, and that he pays $100 a month for this like room on this farm from this guy, and I was like, you make 5 months worth of rent a night. Like, I couldn't get over how much money you're making. I don't know. Even in $1989, I was like, I don't understand.
I love the old dude's like what he tells him. Well, it's $100 a month, and my brain immediately was like, "That's it."
Like, can you afford that?
And I was like, but then I was like, okay, it's 1980s. Everything was like obviously.
It's 1990s in like rural Kansas,
right?
Like, people.
I was like, okay, don't freak out yet. But then the old guy goes, "Are you gonna be able to afford that?" And my brain was like, all right, even for the 80s, what the fuck? Like, the dude, he's driving a Mercedes. That alone should tell you, like, he can afford something. That scene cracks me up because it's such an odd scene to me. I don't know if it, like, it didn't make sense to me. And it's still just so random. It's almost like they just needed the connection between the rich guy who happens to own the town just to have Dalton there. Like,
I do think there could have been a better way to introduce the fact that there's a rich guy
across
in town who controls all of the like businesses around there. But that is the scene they choose to do it in, where he's renting a room from the place, and then a helicopter flies over and spooks the horses, and it lands on the other side of this pond or whatever. And it's like, oh, he's in like a barn, renting a room above the barn. And then across the pond, there's a mansion with a helicopter pad that this guy lands at. And that's how they introduced the villain of the movie.
I had to laugh. My brain was like weirded out by just the randomness that the obvious villain just happens to live in this giant mansion across from a farmhouse. Like, what?
Yeah.
But when the old man's like, I swear he just does that to piss me off. to fly the helicopter around just to rile the horses. In my head
Yeah.
immediately, and I didn't mean for it, just kind of like, wait a minute. It's like that rich guy can just use airspace whenever he pleases. Like he's not having any real clearance on anything.
Yeah, he doesn't have to call the FAA. He just does whatever he wants.
I was like, damn, Kansas is nuts.
It's 1989. Nobody cares.
True. My brain, like the scene just felt so odd to me.
It is kind
It
of
just
odd,
felt
for
weird
sure.
to me, and it was full of like some of the most random moments. I really love just the old guy. My biggest complaint might be I didn't get enough of that old farmer dude. I think more conversations with him and Dalton would have been awesome.
Yeah. I liked him a lot. I feel like Jack Elam also could have been great in that role. He just had that like vibe. But I liked them for sure. And especially later on, he ends up like getting in danger and Dalton has to like save him. I feel like that could have hit harder if I had like he had been in more scenes with him.
Yeah, I think that kind of relationship would have been cooler would have been a lot of fun to see get fleshed out just a little bit. Like not make it the focal point, but it could have been. But then at the same time, I'm like, it's an action beat 'em up film in the 1980s. Like,
yeah, you don't have too many long conversations with the old guy at the farm.
They literally knew what the audience was coming to see, and they would deliver.
Yeah, it was Patrick Swayze's mullet and tight jeans and chicks in
bar
boobs,
fights, which you get his first night at the Double Deuce.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I was like, I loved his calm. How he just walks in, hangs out at the end of the bar, just kind of shrugs everything off and just watches the shit show play out.
I loved how he's able to just pay attention and notice all the things. Like he notices that this bartender is selling drugs to people and this other bartender is pocketing money and cash and stuff. And and he's just kind of like taking mental notes of things that he needs to just like clean up. And he does immediately. He's like, you're fired, you're fired. This bouncer, he fires the biggest bouncer on the staff because he just doesn't have the right personality, I guess, for it.
He doesn't have like the right temperament, because when you first meet him, the guy is like already, running hot. Like he's so pissed off and ready to hit everyone around him. And Dalton clocks it. And I was like, that's good people watching. I like how they show him just kind of sitting back, just watching.
Yeah.
Like,
I like movies like that where you feel like he's a professional expert who knows the role and knows what's needed and is able to, I guess, decisively direct what to do, how to fix this. I think that the owner hired him because he didn't know how to fix it. He has the power to fire all these people, but he doesn't have the ability to see what's happening in his own club. So he needed to bring this guy in who knows exactly what to do and he knows what's needed. And I think that kind of decisiveness is really interesting to see. And experience. Obviously, it comes from experience of him just being like, I've done this a million times. I've seen a million people like you. And the fastest way to get to a solution is to solve it this way, kind of thing.
Let's just dive. Well, not really dive, but let's just mention real quick the bar patrons that you are introduced to at the first bar he's in and at the Double D's for like a good majority of the film until it starts getting cleaned up. Basically like up until they finally get rid of the chicken wire. We'll say that.
Right. I feel like I thought it was interesting. I'd never really thought of this, but if you're trying to get a bar that people go to because it's a dive that nobody cares about and you can do whatever and start fights and all this stuff, you're trying to turn that into a nice place that people will enjoy and bring a higher level of clientele and all that stuff that the owner wants. I haven't really ever thought of that, but yeah, you do kind of need to establish new ground rules that people need to behave at a certain level of behavior, I guess. And yeah, it takes a while for these people to get it because they're used to anything goes, nobody cares. This chick's gonna dance on the table. She's gonna get start taking her clothes off, and these people are like, no, take it outside.
Right. These people were gross to watch for the first good while in this movie.
Yeah,
and I had to think back. I was like, normally I probably wouldn't have thought too much on them or really focused on them at all. I'd be like, oh, they're pieces of shit, and we move on. But I was really, I guess, hyper aware, if you will, of just how gross all the drunk guys and the drunk women were. I mean, across the board, gross.
Right.
They're all for just, what's the word? Oh my god, dude, I suck with words tonight. It's so fucking bad. They just they took everything that people should aspire to be just at the basis of decency,
right,
and threw it all out the window. And it's across the board. Some of the bouncers, the waitresses, the bartenders, the patrons, doesn't matter, male or female. They were all just gross to watch. And I was super aware of this and kind of bothered by it because it was just I've been to a lot of bars. I've had my drinking partying days. You've seen me in some of those days. And I'm like, I remember encountering people kind of like this, but you never focused or gave them the light of day. You just moved on, or they just vanished into a memory.
Right.
But I was like, why am I so focused on how gross these pieces of shit are? And I was like, a goddamn offensive episode. I'm just oh, you're a bad human being.
There was one or two moments where I was like, okay, Dalton needs to get in here and break this shit up because this guy's getting a little rapey. I'm a little concerned that could happen. And maybe it's definitely because of those movies.
I think it was the scene that got me, and I think you were probably on the same scene. We're probably on the same page. The hyper drunk chick, the super drunk dude who's kind of talking for her, and then the two idiots. And she's playing with her tits. And he's like, $20 and you can kiss him. And he comes over and he's groping the hell out of him. She's thinking it's hilarious. The whole time I was like, this is.
I was like, no.
No. Can we, let's move on from this.
Let's bounce this guy. That's what I'm thinking.
just kick them all out.
No, I was in 100% the same place, and I do think it's PTSD from watching all those movies.
Hyper aware all of a sudden of gross.
Yeah, it's true. But there's a lot of those moments where it's they're focused on. I think it's 80s. Being sexy kind of thing where they're focused on there's a hot chick at the bar and she notices Patrick Swayze and she's trying to get his attention, and it feels very 80s. The fact that Patrick Swayze is so dreamy at this point, not just in the movie, but in culture, because of Ghost, because of Dirty Dancing and all this stuff, that the movie takes the time. Yeah, he's not in Flashdance at all. He's not in Flash. He's not in the one with Kevin Bacon where the town dances either, just so you know. How many beers did you have?
Two. But I'm looking at the ABVs and it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, you're like, this checks out. But the fact that Patrick Swayze outside of the movie in culture, in the audience's mind, is so dreamy. I feel like the movie takes the time to let that like marinate.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of the weird things about the movie in the sense that it actually just I don't think it would do that just for the character. I think it's doing it for Patrick Swayze
100%.
specifically.
I think the scene that is like, oh yeah, this is Swayze. This isn't Dalton. This isn't anything else. This is Swayze. And I couldn't find any confirmation on this, but my instinct tells me him doing his I know I'm gonna get it wrong, so don't judge us. I'll simplify it. His martial arts exercise in the yard sequence.
I wrote he does Tai Chi. I don't know if that's what
Okay,
it is.
see, that's why I was like, I'm not gonna try and call off like a style.
Yeah.
Of his martial arts warm up, stretching, meditation.
It's what he does to keep his calm mentality and also his shredded physique.
The whole time I was like, nope, this was the scene that the studio execs were like, we need more shirtless Swayze, and we need him like doing some kind of movement with his body, but we already did the sex scene, so don't worry about that yet.
Right. And not like aggressive fighting, like just slow, could be sexy if chicks are into it kind of thing.
Yeah, that scene was the like, oh, we're just going to show off Swayze. Like, we didn't get the workout montage, so we're going to get like the not sweaty, oddly hairless. Did you notice that? Like
for the 80s? Yeah, I did. I was like, well, maybe 2000s this would be normal, but not late 80s.
I wasn't originally going to admit this, but I feel like I have to because you kind of noticed.
This is what 2 beers get you.
During that sequence, there's this close-up shot of him where like his arms are like out, right? And he moves his body in, but the close-up is weird because you can see like armpit and like the side. It's a weird shot, right?
Okay.
He moves his arm, and I paused it and backed it up a little bit because I was like, I just noticed there is not a hair on this man's body. Like, weird thing to get hung up on. But I had to look back because the close-up of his armpit, I was like, is there anything there? And there's not.
Wow. He waxes his pits.
Apparently, he waxed his pits for this role. Or it was amazing. Like they made him do it for Dirty Dancing and he just...
I mean, could be shaved, but yeah.
Dude, that dude was...
I will forever cherish the fact that you paused shirtless.
Dude, it confused the hell out of me. I was like, did I see that right? Is this... Like...
You paused shirtless Patrick Swayze and zoomed in on his hairless
you're skipping
arms.
I did it. You're
chest
the whole
pits.
reason. I hate you sometimes.
That's amazing. So it turns out it's not just for chicks. It's for chicks and Dustin.
It's for guys who get confused at like there's no
I bet
hair.
it is. I bet it's confused a few guys.
I was like, there was no hair. And that was when I was like, he has no hair anywhere. What the fuck? It's all in the weird mullet 80s perm thing that he's got going on.
His hair is perfect.
Through the early 90s. So
he maintains it through the fight scenes.
He does.
Like, it doesn't even get messed up, really.
Yeah. His hair never gets messy, except for when he's in the pool.
Yeah.
Or in the lake.
Very impressive.
They go in a lake. Like
he does go in the lake, yes. A couple times.
Okay. We can move on from hairless.
All right. That's a good idea. So when he's at the bar and he's firing all those people, I certainly enjoy the fact that he's just firing everybody. He's trying to reset it. And the fact that the owner gives him that, I guess, power that he's able to just get things right on track by firing everybody, not just the drug dealers and the crazy bouncer who's a little too aggressive and all this stuff. But like everyone, and the owner is pretty excited. He's like, this is great. Everything's on track. We're right on. Like he's excited by the progress. But then Dalton warns him it's going to get worse before it gets better, which I thought was interesting. And then yeah, we get to a fight where he gets injured, and then he has to go to the doctor, and the doctor is a hot doctor. Like, and not only is she a hot doctor, it's a one thing to be an attractive person. You can't really control that. It's just who you are. But the voice she uses is not very professional in my mind. Like when she was talking to him as like during the exam, I was like, this is not a professional voice. This is like a, I don't know, a very like sexy voice that you're putting on.
Oh, I see.
And maybe it was me. Yeah. And yeah, she's like, oh, you're really good at stitching yourself up. And I'm like, yeah, obviously, because he does it every day. Basically, it's his job.
Jake had some porno bass lines going on in his head when she talked, huh?
It's true. It was all like bow chicka bow wow and all that stuff.
Soon.
and then, well, okay, getting back to the actual characters, I did enjoy that Dalton was like telling her that not only is he just like a meathead who's good at being a bouncer, he has a degree from NYU where he has a degree in philosophy. And that was a very like specific thing, I thought, where he is, you know, that quote that's like, it's better to be a, what is that quote? It's better to be a, now I'm blanking. It's better to be a gardener in a war than a warrior in a garden. No, it's the other way around. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than it is to be a gardener in a war. You ever heard that?
Nope.
It's kind of like that. All right. Well, it's a thing that people say.
Is it?
And that's kind of like what it's like. I don't know. He's a guy that is like, has studied philosophy, but is also a badass. And that's kind of like, Marcus Aurelius kind of like guy, you know, one of those guys you want to be. You're just Googling the thing I said.
No.
That's what you're doing.
No.
It is a thing people say. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, goddamn right, I'm right.
Like, that's the actual verbatim.
Verbatim.
Quote,
It took me a minute to get there, but that is verbatim what it is.
It is. Folks, I'm yeah, it is. It's a
All right.
Oh, it's a paraphrase of a Chinese proverb.
That's fine. I don't care. That's fine.
I'm telling
close
you
enough.
what it is.
I didn't tell you where it was from, so I don't feel like I'm wrong.
I didn't say you were wrong. I was just adding the
I feel like you're attacking
not.
me. Okay. So moving on.
I see your gardener warrior, and I say, "Fuck you."
The main catalyst of the story is the fact that the guy that we saw, the villain who's super rich, he ends up. You learn that there are guys who are shaking down the Double Deuce. And that because they one of the guys that's fired comes back and he's like, hey, guess what? I can't be fired. You have to let me keep stealing money from you because all these guys say so, basically. And so you learn, and then there's a big fight that happens and they kick those guys out, obviously. But the point is that you learn that there are forces at work that are bigger than just some dickhead trying to steal money, that they are actually... there's a not like a mob element, but like some sort of organized crime kind of thing happening where they are supposedly legitimate, but also able to flex their muscle and force these businesses to do things they don't want to do. And the Double Deuce is one of those where they, even though they're trying to clean things up, they're impeded from being able to clean it up as well much as they want to because of the main bad guy. What's his name? Brad Wesley, who is like this. The synopsis calls him a entrepreneur. I feel like that's very generous. He's kind of a
Entrepreneur.
total.
He basically has loaned out enough money to all these people who have businesses in this town.
Mhm.
They all owe him. He's already hyper rich, and
Yeah.
he kind of flexes that muscle, or he kind of dominates their businesses for his own good.
Yeah.
He's basically,
He owns them.
he reminded me of Prince John from Robin Hood with the Sheriff of Nottingham, where he sends his goons to go and collect the money, and they're like, "We can't pay.
Yep.
Like, what are you doing to us?" And they're like, "Well, it's our money anyways."
Yeah.
Yeah, and if
I
you
don't know why I sound like
comply,
an old lady.
they burn your building down. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that does happen. There are a lot of explosions in this movie, more
Yeah.
explosions than I anticipated.
I didn't expect explosions. I also didn't anticipate there to be a storyline of Dalton versus this rich dickhead and his goons. I didn't expect that. But that's the story you get. You don't get just, oh, he's cleaning up a bar. He's like, because I expected
Yeah.
him to show up, bar fight, friendship,
Yeah.
some romance.
Just normal bouncer stuff.
Right. And then, like, the bar would get cleaned up. The town would kind of be better for it, right? People start showing up and kind of learn, like, oh, we don't have to get in fights to enjoy the night. Hey!
Follow rules. Yeah.
He would leave town, and that would be the end of the movie. At the start of it, that is what I thought it was going to go.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I was like, dude, this is like Jackie Chan style, like Mr. Nice Guy storyline, where he shows up and all of a sudden it's like he stops a theft, and all of a sudden it's this big crime boss that you're like,
Yeah.
what's happening? That's basically Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Like, how
That's
did we end up
extremely
at this
accurate.
point?
That's extremely accurate. I like that analogy. Yeah, and I liked the villain in Brad Wesley in the sense that he shares a lot of the same like characteristics as Dalton's character, where he values strength, he values kind of like he's in control of the people around him and all that stuff, similar to Dalton. And also he demands like honesty among his men. He condemns them for like their low, like he wants a higher pain tolerance from them and all that stuff. I feel like him and Dalton normally would have a lot of things in common, but because of his actions, he becomes his enemy basically. And so I think that's interesting. I think that those two as being rivals works well overall.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty good interpretation of like the hero and villain should always mirror each other. They do in this one as well, where you would expect like the villain to kind of mirror the town, but he doesn't. It's truly just him and Dalton that it comes down to. I kind of wish their fight was a little better and ended a little differently, but it's still satisfying. We'll get there.
Yeah, he doesn't have all of the like, I guess, abilities that Dalton has.
Right.
That would have been better if he was actually like someone who could fight him like you would want him to. But because of all of this stuff that Brad Wesley is doing to the town and to everything, Dalton calls his old buddy Wade Garrett, who is, like we said, a complete stud, and is it like Dalton has expressed, is the best bouncer out there, even though he's getting a little older. And he tells him, like, I kind of don't know what to do with these guys. They're a different kind of town, and I kind of need some help. And so he comes out to help his old buddy.
So his first scene at the strip club that was Garrett works at.
Yeah.
cracked me up because first off, I wasn't used to seeing Sam Elliott in a scene with a bunch of boobies going around, but his first scene is that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember hearing a few things about Roadhouse when I was a kid of like classmates that had watched it who would make jokes of like, man, if you want to see boobs in a movie, just watch Roadhouse. And obviously I never watched it. And then watching it now, I kept hearing like those old classmates saying that and being like, God damn, they weren't kidding. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of boobs. But I had to laugh when they're on the phone, and I was like, I love movie phone conversations, and this one is definitely one of the best ones because it's so like no one ever says goodbye, no one ever does. Like, usually questions are left unanswered or plans are left
Vague.
Vague. There's like
Yeah.
no confirmation. There's no whatever. It's
So when are you coming? Do I need to pick you up?
right.
Like, what's happening?
Here's a time. Let's aim for this window. No, it's very much like mid sentence. Guy starts getting unruly and he goes, "Oh, time to go."
Yeah.
And no one cares. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
If my friends hung up on me like that, I'd be like, you fucking asshole, and I'd be texting you back. Like,
Yeah. Well, this is 1989. There is no text.
no texting. Okay, 1989. We were two. People would be calling back in real, like in the real world. If you hung up like that, people would be calling you back, being like, "Hey."
Yeah, we didn't solidify our plans.
But that's just a movie trope where no one ever actually makes a plan. But I love their like kind of playful little like, "Oh, how's it going down there? Oh, same shit, different town." And then that joke plays out later on. And yeah, the whole like kind of
definitely not.
I like the mentor. I didn't get like a father-son kind of relationship between the two. I got very much either like older brother, if you ever had to go kind of a family route where it was the older brother teaching the younger brother. I got that kind of vibe, or just the basic, he was the teacher, Dalton was a student, and they just happened to be very close.
He's like the sensei of bouncers, basically.
But I appreciated that they still showed Dalton, who is set up at this point to be the guy, the know-all. He's got all the answers. He's got all the like tricks in the book, yada yada. Expert. He knows all. I like seeing characters like that who are shown reaching out for like, hey, just kind of looking for a little bit of guidance. Turns out I don't know everything. Could you help me out a little bit? I like scenes like that.
Especially because this town is a little bit different. Like, if you get the idea that he's done this a lot of times, and it to the point that it kind of should go a normal standard route, but this town is a little different, and he's not really sure, I guess, how to actually resolve it because of the villain.
Yeah, he's probably not encountered a town with like a crime boss who's actually being a crime boss and like threatening to kill people out in the open and committing blatant crimes out in the whole movie. Okay,
completely able to, no actual like difficulty doing it from the police or anything.
I've been to several bars. You have been to bars.
I have. I'm familiar.
I've seen a couple bar fights. I've never been in a bar fight, but I've seen a couple fights. I've seen kind of unruly people get kicked out of a bar. There's always cops around, though, during these times. Like, in real life, cops are generally called in. They're generally somewhere very close to the vicinity of a bar where unruly people are getting looted or getting into fights.
It seems like they're called immediately when someone is like not listening.
Yeah, well,
or being
and it makes sense, right? Because like
Yeah.
suddenly you're gonna blur the lines of
like
liability.
we're about to kick these people
Yeah.
out. We need somebody around to like just observe and make sure that nothing goes sideways.
The fuck were any cops in Roadhouse?
There are 0 cops in this movie.
Did we just
They mention at one point that they don't really need to call the cops because the villain controls them or can control them if he needs to. But that's how they explain it away. You don't see them. They don't try.
There's not even like a quick shot of a car driving by. They simply
there may be 0 police in the whole town for all I know.
Don't exist in this town. It's like I'm pretty sure even this kind of bar would have officers probably stationed there.
Yeah. But the way that it's set up in the story is that it's incredibly unruly, that there are fights there all the time. It's just the worst place ever. So yeah, that is where they would be stationed constantly. Is like it's after 4 p.m. We need to have people at the Double Deuce. Because something is going to happen every night at this point.
That business literally just blew up. Explosives, fireballs everywhere. It is chaos and horrible. People are probably dead or seriously injured.
Right.
We don't need any emergency service. Okay?
Right. I think they have an ambulance once or twice, maybe once in the movie.
I don't remember.
But that's the most emergency services I can recall.
Oh, yeah.
I think when that store gets blown up, there are ambulances there.
Or at least one.
Maybe a fire truck.
I think it's a fire truck. I don't even think it's an ambulance. I think it's a fire truck.
I think you're right. I do think it's a fire truck too, now that I'm thinking of it. Yeah, the emergency services are very limited in this town, apparently.
Like, did they not have the budget to write in a couple cops? Like, we literally can't use uniforms or cars, so it's that Hollywood trick with that one line of dialogue. Oh, the bad guy controls them. That's why they're not around. Okay.
Yeah, don't even worry about them. We'll just not bother. And I mean, he does. I really enjoy the fact that the villain is so in control and tyrannical of the town, and he's kind of slimy about it. And then to top it off, he has his goons go and get Dalton and bring him to his house, and then Dalton walks in and they're going to have this like big hero and villain conversation. But then he sees that one blonde girl, not the doctor blonde girl, but the other blonde girl, jazzercising in the living room, and she has like a bruise on her face that she tries to hide from him. And immediately, that Dalton will not stand for this guy beating his girlfriend or wife or whatever. And so you're like, okay, even if I didn't hate this villain enough, now I know he's a wife beater or a lady beater. Dalton needs to completely get him out of here.
It kind of like, I don't want to say crack me up because that just feels wrong to say. But so that character, when you first see her and she kind of like I fucks Dalton at the bar.
Yeah, she hypes him for sure.
You're like, okay, I don't think she's the romantic interest, but if this was like a romantic comedy, she would be the chick that he sleeps with when he's all heartbroken that like helps spiral the good relationship down, right? She would be that character.
Could if he wanted to.
Yeah. And she like flat out walks up to him. She's like, what would you say if I told you, let's go back to my house? But she says it so weird. Did you notice how she says it? It's so
it is weird for sure.
Like just the line is, we're used to hearing those lines, but the way she says and foot, like,
you're like, ew.
Right? That sounds like it'd be dangerous. Like in this situation.
Yeah. Definitely a
And of
danger.
course, that's like what leads up to the abuse.
Hmm.
But at that point, you already know the villain is the villain. You already think he's a douche. You already like, I
Hmm.
hate this guy. Obviously, Dalton's going to kick his ass. What cracked me up about the whole scene was like when you see her, to me, it was the like, just in case the audience hasn't completely bought into, you should hate this character,
Yeah.
Black Eye. And yeah,
Right.
like you, I was like, oh, is Dalton gonna like hit him now? Like, are we gonna get a like, here's a taste of your own medicine kind of line? You don't. But
Yeah. It'd be cool if he did.
yeah, I'm kind of glad they didn't because I was expecting it and it was like trying to predict a 1989
Right.
film. So I'm glad that
True.
they didn't.
A little cliche.
Yeah, they definitely utilize cliches, but not all of them, which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, they they mention, and so that all happens, and the potential for a romance with this other blonde girl, the girlfriend of the villain, happens kind of before the actual love interest
Well,
with the doctor
so
girl.
he's seen the doctor outside of the doctor's office at this
Yeah.
point, which were you kind of confused the first time you saw her not wearing glasses?
She wasn't wearing glasses. She didn't have the braid mostly. Where
Yeah.
I was like, you are blonde, but you don't have the braid and the glasses. And so, are you even the same person? She looks
When
different
she
for
showed
sure.
up at the bar, immediately I was like, 3 chicks? He's about to juggle 3 chicks? And then it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the doctor. Yeah, she's hot.
I thought that she was hotter as the doctor, and so I was confused. I was like, yeah, I definitely thought this was a new person,
You thought the
a
third
new
girl
character.
too?
Yeah, as a new character, I was like, well, she's worse than the other two we've seen so far. I was confused, but then I figured it out. I was like, yeah, oh yeah, she's the doctor who's just let her hair down and she's ready to like hang out, and and so I enjoyed the as he was that you there's a will he won't he kind of with the villain's girlfriend of she tries to come on to him, she's interested in him, she's hyping him like you said, but it's hinted at, or it's not really hinted at, it's kind of talked about by Sam Elliott's character when they're at the diner and doing the dancing scene. This is the dancing scene. This is my symbol, hand signal for the dancing scene. Apparently,
That should be
apparently
the new
I dance
dancing
like
trend, not the Wednesday
I
Addams
dance
one.
like the
It needs to be
dance
Jake's.
like the Peanuts. It's like the Peanuts. They dance like this. Sam Elliott mentions to him something that was hinted at earlier on, where there's a kind of a rumor about Dalton going around that he has killed a man before. Through a throat rip.
Right.
He's ripped out a man's throat, which is great foreshadowing for what's about to happen. But Sam Elliott talks about like, you're still haunted by this thing that has happened. You need to let it go, man. And so they kind of talk about it as kind of backstory that apparently in the past, Dalton actually had kind of a similar thing happen where this girl came onto him. They kind of started up a relationship. She didn't tell him that she was married. And then the husband shows up and points a gun in his face. And in self-defense, Dalton rips his throat out and kills him. And so he's kind of haunted by the fact that he had to kill a guy in self-defense. And this kind of started this rumor. But now we're in the same situation where this girl, not the doctor, but the other girl is kind of flirting, I would say, with Dalton, and she is the girlfriend of the crime boss. Yeah. And that's a dangerous situation. And so if you kind of let that thing get out of control, you could easily end up in the same, it's just like tension is building, I guess, in the story.
Well, it kind of adds, when you learn the backstory of Dalton, it makes his character kind of make a little more sense in terms of how he does try to like not be in a fight. If he has to be in a fight, he will. But his fighting is very. I think every kick he throw, every kick, every punch, whatever, is typically done in hopes of like one and done, maybe a couple, and hopefully the guy will go down so that it doesn't have the chance to escalate too far. Of course, he hasn't met like the head goon yet, but
and you, anybody who's like been around or heard about fights or whatever, shit happens. Like if you push somebody and they slip and hit their head on a table, they can just be killed. Like it's a dangerous thing for sure to just get into fights. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to like avoid fights at all costs. If you need to fight, take it outside so you don't damage the establishment. And I think it just rings true to the character. That's a good general rule of thumb, I guess, for it to go that way.
Granted, at this point in the movie, you've realized he doesn't follow his like rule all that well.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, almost all of his fights are inside the bar,
or at least they all,
which is my favorite part.
In the bar, and then there's a couple where they do manage to get outside again, but there's a lot inside the bar.
Yeah, you could say that this. You could explain it away by saying this is an anomaly. This is different than his normal experience because he's just the nature of the like business, I guess. But yeah, generally that is exactly what happens.
Sorry.
And speaking of taking fights outside the bar, I forgot my favorite line of the movie. One of my favorite lines. There's several really good lines in this movie, but one of them is when Sam Elliott, Wade Garrett, first shows up, and they're like in the middle of kind of a scuffle outside of the bar, and a guy is like, "You want to fight, Dickless?" And Sam Elliott's like, well, I'm sure I'm not going to show you my dick. And I don't know why I thought that was so funny. Maybe it's because it's Sam Elliott saying it, but it's just perfect.
No, it's a good line. It's a good line. I'm not going to show you my dick.
I'm not going to show you my dick. And then it kicks his ass. And that's probably why it works so well. It's because there's a fight that breaks out.
Well, you get to see him be... I don't want to say completely live up to kind of the picture that's been painted of him of like he's the best, because he still gets hit. He's still like he still gets his ass kicked at the same time. Like he takes some punches.
Right. He's not immortal,
right? But I think that goes in line with the whole like with Dalton the reputation where the guy he hears it a couple times of like, oh, I thought you'd be bigger. It still goes the same for Garrett, where like you as the audience have this kind of built in your head of, oh, I bet he's the kind of guy that, one hit and he's going to knock a guy out, and that'll be the end of it. You realize like, no, he's still going to take a few shots because he has to, but he'll finish the fight.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was an interesting little thing. Him and Garrett don't ever actually start a fight. And I was like, that was another kind of nostalgic thing to me of like growing up back then, primarily. I was told, I don't know about you, you were that weird homeschool kid.
It's true.
But it was like, it was kind of a rule, but one that you would hope, or your parents and your father especially would hope you would never have to actually worry about, was you never throw the first punch. You don't start a fight, but you can finish a fight. That was always
you should be able to finish it, but you should never start it.
You don't throw that first punch. And I thought Roadhouse, that was another little thing that clicked for me of like real life nostalgia. Not the member berries nostalgia that I'm a sucker for too, but this was like real life where it was that kind of guideline, that rule of like, don't be the one to start it, because then it really is your fault, but you can be the guy that ends it and just put it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
And I think him and Garrett are good representations of that kind of guideline, especially for young boys, young men. So
Yeah, I think it's primarily what makes them the heroes of the movie
yeah.
is that they are defensive in nature, I guess, which is a good character trait to have for a hero.
Yeah.
Going back to the villain and his lady, the scene that stood out to me, and you said earlier that the movie feels very surface for a lot of it, and you for at least half of it, and you didn't know how he would deep dive it. I'm curious where that changed for you.
Okay.
But for me, the scene that I was like, this movie is a little bit crazy and I'm really excited about it, is the scene where the villain has he goes to the double deuce. So Wesley goes to the double deuce and brings his girl and has her dance on stage and start stripping.
Well, yeah, she does this, like a whole strip tease to it.
Yeah. And so Patrick Swayze's character goes up to try to stop her. He doesn't try very hard to stop her. He just kind of stands there and is like, please, ma'am, can you please stop? Please, can you? And she doesn't stop her, but she goes through this whole routine or whatever. And meanwhile, the villain's like, oh, isn't this so... I don't know what his like game is, but he's just like, my girlfriend is stripping for the whole world. And I don't know how that's
look at
like
my power.
I don't know how that's a flex of power to have your like girlfriend stripping for everybody. I think everybody's enjoying it because she's like an attractive lady, maybe the most attractive person in the whole town. But she eventually finishes, and Dalton brings her off, and then he brings out his like lead goon Jimmy to just walk out on the dance floor with a pool cue, and he's like, hey, now I'm gonna fight everybody. And just that juxtaposition of I'm gonna bring out this girl, she's gonna dance and strip, and then I'm gonna bring out this other guy who's gonna invite everybody to fight with him. And then a big fight breaks out.
So
it felt so weird, but I enjoyed all of it.
It is weird. I wasn't super weirded out by it because to me it kind of made sense. Originally, I was lost because I was like, this is the weirdest like intimidation maneuver I think I've seen a villain make. Like, how are you going to intimidate this bar and Dalton by having this chick striptease on the stage? But when the head goon comes out immediately after and kicks the shit out of everyone,
pretty much,
it kind of made sense to me where the villain made sure like everyone's focus was drawn to the girl, and they're like still stuck on kind of, we just saw this chick strip tease on our stage. This is the weird, like it's weird. She's hot,
kind of disarming,
very disarming. And then you have this guy come out with a weapon and literally kick the crap out of a bunch of guys who aren't good at fighting. They're good at subduing, but he makes sure they never get close enough to be able to put them in some kind of submission. So to me, like, weird intimidation factor, like maneuver, but kind of made sense in a big distraction tool. Yeah. Because as sad as it is to admit it, like, nudity is distracting. And for a bunch of males that have to put up with gross, sweaty old men drinking and fighting and cursing all night, like seeing a chick strip tease out of nowhere, that's going to be in your head for a little while.
Yeah, pretty successful.
Yeah.
A distraction.
And it worked because they get their asses handed to them. It kind of, not the strip tease, but it kind of reminded me of like, and I know release times are very different, so don't try to like fact check me or whatever. But there were a couple moments where I was like, this feels like campy Tombstone-y with was that Ringo when he shows up?
Yeah, Johnny
Yeah.
Ringo.
You know, hit the whole like spinning the gun, kind of showing that off, threatening Doc Holliday, and that whole standoff kind of thing. Like, I don't want to say wannabe because obviously Roadhouse came out before Tombstone did, but that was kind of the like westerny. Oh, here we go. To me, this guy was the Johnny Ringo of this Kansas town. I still think Johnny Ringo is scarier, but
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I love Tombstone.
yeah. But I do like Dalton during that scene because he's the only one that's like unfazed by the striptease. He's the only one that kind of, like you said, where he walks up to the stage and just kind of patiently like, all right, can we just like, can you get down? Can we move on from this? It's almost like a parent trying to calm or just deal with an unruly kid of just, I know you're going to tire or bore yourself out, so can we just move on? Mm-hmm. That was kind of how I like how Dalton handles it, because he's the only one that doesn't seem to give two shits that she's up on stage trying to tease him and distract him, I guess, from the fight that he's about to be in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's for sure. I really like the villain of Wesley in the sense that he could have chosen to control the town in a less exciting way. Yeah. Like he could have been more underground or boring, but he does it in the most exciting way possible. The whole movie, he is blowing stuff up constantly. He blows up the doctor's uncle's business. Mm-hmm. He kind of shakes it up and they rob it all the time. He drives a monster truck through a car dealership building.
The monster truck was one of the most random things I've seen in a movie where it just like, it just shows up. There's never a like, ooh, I have this monster truck sitting here. It just literally shows up.
As soon as they like, there's a scene where someone walks into the parking lot and they like kind of talk about it or walk by it or something. Yeah. I was like, I hope that monster truck actually pays off. And it definitely does.
It definitely does. Yeah, the villain, Wesley, is good because he flaunts being a villain. Mm-hmm. He owns it. He doesn't have a like, oh, I'm evil because I have good intentions, but I'm going about it in the completely wrong way. No, he's very much like, no, I'm a bad human and I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to drive a monster truck through your car dealership, crush all of your cars, and I will move on with my life as if nothing happened today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, he looks so silly as like kind of a small, normal guy, but he is also, I guess, intimidating in the sense that he is in control of most things and the hero is struggling to.
He's also, for as predictable as the town or the job itself, like the basic job itself of trying to be a cooler at this bar, the Double Deuce, the villain is very unpredictable for Dalton. Mm-hmm. Because he flaunts every action that he does. He doesn't care. And I think that's kind of different for Dalton, which kind of helps, to me, kind of turns Dalton from trying to maintain his I'm going to be nice until I don't have to be, where he realizes like the only way to get through to this guy or to stop him is actually I'm going to have to go and like violence will ensue. It's the only way I can get this guy because he is being so excessively violent, ridiculously excessively violent. Yeah. But that monster truck going through the car dealership still cracks me up.
Yeah, it's a good time, especially with all the glass breaking and
Yeah.
everything. And then and he also blows up the old geezer's house, the guy that he's renting a room from.
Right.
He's just like, as soon as you think like, oh, everything that's significant has happened, and then they're like making love and making out, and then all of a sudden more stuff is blowing up.
The villain becomes kind of like a creeper voyeur in terms of he watches Dalton and the doctor chick have sex on the roof, the little like windowsill roof area.
Yeah.
Which I was like, man, that would be painful because shingles can't be that comfortable.
Yeah, it's true. You're not wrong. You're a little maybe overthinking it.
Maybe,
but
but that was the thought that went in my head.
Yeah. So the villain, or not the villain, but the, I guess, main henchman of Jimmy, this guy that apparently knows all these martial arts as well. He's just as versed as Dalton is. He maybe needs to work on his trash talk a little bit, if you ask me. There's a couple of times
there
where it's
is
a little...
one line from him that I was like, why of all, why?
Is it the part where he's like, I used to fuck guys like you in prison?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I was like,
okay.
I
don't think that's a flex, bro.
That was like, we just learned so much about that character. That was like,
yeah. TMI, as the kids say.
Pretty much all that. I mean, it kind of helps give him even more of a gross factor or an evil factor, because like they're blatantly telling you like he raped guys in prison. Yuck.
Yeah. Not a good guy.
But that line just felt so like desperate to me. It's so weird. It was like they were trying to figure out how many one-liners can we force in this movie, and there's some very fun dialogue. My favorite line is at the end of the movie. We'll get to it here in a little bit. I wonder if you can guess what my favorite line was.
End of the movie. Now I'm
Towards
curious.
the end of the movie.
I think one of my favorites is from Sam Elliott when he's first introduced and he's on the phone and he's like, yeah, people are crazy. You don't really know what to expect all the time. We have a sign above our urinal that says, don't eat the big white man.
Yeah. Which made me laugh because I don't think I've seen a sign that says that exact thing, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a sign in a bar before that like, or a joke something telling people don't eat the cake in the pisser. Like,
yeah, it sounds very familiar.
Which was funny and then very sad because you have to remember every time there's a warning sign or a please don't do this sign was made because someone did that stupid thing.
Yeah. It's made necessary, unfortunately, because someone was that dumb.
And that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true.
It's funny that he calls it a mint.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's interesting that this, when we're talking about Jimmy and their like fight, and when he has those terrible lines, the comeback lines, the same thing happens that happened to Dalton when he was in Memphis, and the thing that they had foreshadowed and worried about. Apparently, every time that a gun is pulled on him, he just goes crazy and starts ripping dudes' throats out. Because he's fine in every fight and he's able to finish the fight and let these people like subdue them basically. But when a gun gets pulled, I think the only time the gun gets pulled in the whole movie, and you learn from the backstory also a gun was pulled, he just rips that guy's throat out and kills him immediately.
Yeah. I guess in my head, because the throat ripping scene is pretty famous. People like
Yeah.
No, you see a throat get ripped out. I guess my brain had built it up where like it was going to be a crazy close up of like a throat being torn off.
I picture like what I remember from when I was a kid. I remember my mind being blown
Yeah.
and being like, I didn't know that there would be a throat rip and such excessive violence in this movie. That's what I remember. When I saw it now, I was like, that's it?
Right. Like it happens so fast and it's so,
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason you know he tears
I
his throat out,
picture like Predator, where he rips your whole
right,
spine out
which
of
is
your
one
body.
of the coolest scenes ever. I love that. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, like the only reason you know he ripped his throat out is they have to do a close up of the corpse
Yeah.
with the doctor lady who's like, "How could you?"
Yeah. She comes out of nowhere. That was also one of my favorite parts, is like she's not around really for the fight at all. And then like at the end of the fight, she kind of runs in, checks him, does her doctor
Well,
thing
yeah, she like
basically.
ignores Dalton, like, "Fuck off, dude," and she runs
Yeah.
right to the dead guy, cries, and then hates Dalton.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, are you okay? I can't believe that guy attacked
Right.
you. It's like, you just ripped that guy's throat out. He's definitely dead and his throat has been ripped out. How dare you? And now she runs away. And that's like the end of the scene. Well, that's not the end of the scene, because my favorite part is where Dalton drags the guy's body into the lake and then just yells at the guy across the lake, the villain.
I love that scene. I was like, what
I love that scene.
because he like drags the body in and kind of pushes it with the tide or whatever, or the
Yeah.
it's not really
He's
a
like,
full tide.
here's your trash, Wesley.
Right. Well, it was like here's your animal, right? You sent him to kill me, I killed him. Suck it, bitch. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I liked it. I was like, what a power move. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does.
Yeah. Just the way that he's
Dalton.
like wading into the water and yelling across the lake at the villain is very intimidating.
But it is kind of the turning point for Dalton, because he does snap like after that fight, and then after the phone call from Wesley, he kind of spirals and becomes like the one thing he's been trying not to be for the entirety of the film.
Well, and the worst part of the whole movie is when he goes to the Double Deuce and he's trying to get Wade to like wake up off the bar, and he rolls him over, and Wade has been stabbed and is killed. And I shit you not, I almost cried.
Really?
I was very upset. I did not understand or was prepared at all for Wade to die. Like, I know he like flipped the coin. He's like, either Wade or Elizabeth or whatever has to die.
Well, and he tells him like, I'm not going to tell you, which I thought that's a good villain move. Like,
yeah, it kept your interest for sure. But you get there. I don't know. I was expecting it to be the girl, I guess.
Okay.
And he get there and he rolls him over and there's a knife out of his chest, and the lead up, I knew as soon as he was laying there that he was dead, before you saw the knife or anything. I knew it. But as the scene went on and you see Dalton's face, and he just the way he was so upset that his best friend in the whole world has been killed, I was like, okay, this is kind of getting, and maybe it's because we've been watching movies for next episode, and those are all tearjerker related episode. But maybe my emotions are a little towards the surface right now.
I'm not judging
I wasn't
you,
prepared.
I'm not judging you.
I wasn't prepared for Wade Garrett to die.
I kind of like.
I was very upset.
When they're on the phone and he flips the coin and he tells him like, man, I wish I could tell you, but I'm not going to. You'll just find out. I was like, this will be interesting, because cliche would say the girl, because he's been a creeper watching them have sex. He knows that like they're all lovey-dovey all of a sudden.
And
they
you
just
think it's the love interest. The love interest is going to be it's a common for the villain to try to steal or kill the princess. That's what
and they had just gotten in a fight, so it would hype, it would like make the
Right.
situation that much worse.
Right.
But then I was like, but killing the mentor that'd be pretty brutal.
And that's a deeper love. It's a longer relationship and all that.
And then it like scene or two later, Dalton's in the double twos and Garrett shows up beaten up. And I was like, oh shit. Was he the intended target, but he fought his way out?
Yeah.
Like he survived.
They tried and failed because he's such a badass.
Right. I was like, he survived the attack because he clearly just got his ass handed to him, but he's here.
Yeah.
So he won the fight.
He is the best.
Right. And I was like, okay. And he, Dalton even says like, oh, I've got to get to what's her name? And
yeah.
I got to go check on her.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think they're going to go after the girl. I thought it was done. Like, I thought.
Yeah. Tried and failed. Nobody's going to die.
And now Dalton was going to snap just simply based on, you just attacked the two people I cared the most about in the world. So now I'm
just the attempt.
That's what I thought. And then I was like, I got to quit trying to predict this movie because every time I try to do, I'm wrong. And
it's too good.
Stupid. But
yeah.
But yeah, when he goes back in the bar and Garrett was laying on the bar, very much like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that too much.
I'm not judging you, and you're right. Our prep for next week has been like,
yeah, lots of tears.
Oh my god, I'm so tired of crying at movies.
At least it's mostly good cries. We'll get to that. But I think it's a good motivator overall that his best friend in the world and mentor has been killed by this guy because, like you said, he goes on a rampage and he kind of just starts not just ripping throats, but he goes to the villain's chateau or mansion or whatever and starts dropping polar bears on dudes and killing guys and all this stuff. He goes feral. He
beats the shit out of a lot of people in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And he finally takes the fight to Wesley and his henchmen and all that stuff, which he's been on the defense the whole movie. So
which
it's nice to see him finally.
Because I can hear it now, people being like, he took the fight. You just said it. He took the fight to Wesley. He's starting this fight with Wesley. Yeah. And I'm like,
he's not starting it, but he has to take the fight to him because it won't go away.
This fight was started long before this moment. He is just finally at a place where like he's gonna.
It's like you said,
it.
he has to finish it. He didn't start it, but he has to finish it.
He can't just like leave this one outside. He actually has to.
Yeah. No, that's true. So I enjoyed overall all of the fights, all of the action and everything. I think that it does a really good job, especially at the ending. I think that the actual ending part is a little too happy for me as they're like swimming in the pond. Like Wade just died. Wade Garrett just died. You can't just be swimming in the pond.
But that's a normal Hollywood thing. Like, you can kill major characters, major side characters.
Sure.
But the ending will be the hero is happy with no remorse, and they're like making jokes about, like, man, we showed him. That's a Hollywood thing, dude. You know this.
It sucks. It sucks. I'm maybe a little too emotionally invested, but it still sucks.
See, the thing about the ending that is just so like, okay, is the one time we see a cop. Because the sheriff does show up.
Finally,
right? Finally. Watching these guys, like, I like seeing the town get their own. Like, I like seeing them take Wesley out. I'm kind of shocked he survives that many hits to the body. I feel like other characters died from way smaller wounds way quicker, but it's a
Yeah.
Hollywood villain.
He's the villain. Yeah.
What cracks me up and weirds me out about that ending, though, is they each fire their shotguns into him, right? And then the old guy
Mhm.
just kind of takes the guns. Where does he go? Where does he put the guns away?
Yeah.
And I love how just out of nowhere they're all like, we didn't see anything. Anyone would be like, you clearly just shot him. Like,
Yeah, everybody knows.
like there's nothing at all. But yeah, them like being happy and in the pool or in the lake, whatever it is,
Mhm.
it does seem kind of a rushed. Like, oh, we killed the villain. Now what do we do? Dalton stays in town with the chick.
Yeah. Yeah. They all live happily ever
Right.
after.
I was satisfied. I do wish, though, I guess I was hoping that Dalton's fight with Wesley was gonna kind of be more in line, not exactly the same, but more in line of like Riggs' fight with Mr. Joshua, or
Yeah.
basically I was hoping for a Lethal Weapon style fight.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was hoping for that, where Dalton would just be able to like haul off, whoop his ass, be super tired and exhausted at the end of it.
Yeah.
Maybe tell Wesley,
All
like,
out.
you're not worth it. I'm not going to kill you, which would have been the redeeming moment for him. And then he could have had the guys kill him as like Wesley tries one last maneuver. But I still liked Roadhouse. I thought it was still fun. I still thought it's such an odd movie. But like we said at the beginning, like I kind of get the passionate fans. I do.
Yeah.
Like, I can't fault them.
Right.
I can't quite pinpoint how I get it. It's just like this weird intuition. Like, I get it. I get it. I don't think I will be that diehard of a fan. I could be wrong. We could talk in like 2 months and I'll be like, dude, Roadhouse.
I've watched it a dozen times since this episode.
Right. Like, it might be the greatest
Can't let it
movie
go.
ever made.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time. I see the appeal. I think that I'll definitely watch it again for sure.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie to watch. There's a lot of things that I like. I like martial arts. I like heroes. I like stories. I like saving towns and all that stuff. I like seeing the bad guy get what's coming to him, all that stuff.
I definitely, especially the second time I watched it, I was like, this is definitely a movie I want in my giant ridiculous collection. And I was like, I'm pretty positive every time I would watch this, I would follow it up with Point Blank. Or Point Break.
Yeah, Point Break.
Not that they're related, but I feel like after finally seeing Roadhouse, I'm not sure I could watch one or the other without the other one.
The other one.
Like I have to.
They complement each other, you're saying?
Yeah, not as like a sequel kind of thing, but just I love Point Break so much. I feel like Roadhouse is right there for me. And obviously Swayze is the
connecting tissue there.
He's the common denominator. Although I do like Keanu Reeves a little bit more than I like Patrick Swayze in Point Break. But that's just me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's not really about Patrick Swayze like Roadhouse is.
But yeah, I definitely enjoyed Roadhouse. I thought it was fun. It's ridiculous. I think it's like perfect 80s action, which was crazy. I was looking at 1989. I kind of got jealous of people who got to go to the theater in 1989.
Yeah.
Did you see the list of movies that like came out that year?
No, but I do that a lot where I'm like, I can't believe all these movies came out the same year.
Wait till you see this list.
Okay.
I know you're looking it up. Just look it up.
Googling
Just
it.
look it up.
See No Evil, Hear No Evil with which is a great comedy movie with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Batman, of course. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Kickboxer. Cyborg. These are all License to Kill, great James Bond movie. Glory, good one. Dead Poet Society, kind of a great drama. Who's Harry Crumb? Lethal Weapon 2, Twister. I feel like Uncle Buck. There's a lot of John Candy movies in 1989. Weekend at Bernie's.
Getting closer.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Dude, it came out like... This would have been potentially my favorite year of going to the theater.
Meet the Feebles from Peter Jackson. Parenthood. Back to the Future Part 2.
Look at that fucking list, dude.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of great years. I feel like 1994 is also a great year. There's a handful of years I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how many great movies came out that year.
Yeah, when I was looking at 1989, I was just shaking my head because I was like, dude, I would have been at that theater the whole year. Like, I probably never would have left that theater.
Oh, for sure.
And Kickboxer.
Yeah.
People mock Jean-Claude Van Damme a lot. His movies are super campy. The Kickboxer and Bloodsport are two that I'm always like, just watch those two movies. They're a little different.
Yeah. Well, people shit on Steven Seagal a lot these days, but if you go back and you watch like Under Siege, it's great. Like it's Roadhouse level, I think.
Oh, really?
I love Under Siege. I maybe it's just the nostalgia, like you were saying, but I think it's great.
So, can you guess what my favorite line in Roadhouse was?
I was gonna ask. I wrote a note so I didn't forget because we were getting away from it. But no, I don't know what your favorite line at the end of the movie is.
It's literally, a polar bear fell on me. When he says that, I was like, I laughed out loud. I was rolling. I was just like, what an awesome... I wish that would have been the final line of the whole movie.
Yeah.
But I was like...
Yeah. Shit got wild. A polar bear fell.
That line got spoken, and I was like, that caps this movie very well. It's so random. Unless you've seen the movie, it makes no sense to you. But
yeah, as I was writing down all of the crazy things that happen that this villain does, like the things he blows up, I was like, and then the hero goes like wild and starts and invades this guy's house and kills a guy with a polar bear, and then the guy ended up not being killed. Like, okay, need to backspace that a little bit, but he does have a fall on him. That's pretty
I see
cool.
you found my trophy room. The only thing missing is your ass.
There's a lot of good lines in this movie. I feel like
the bad guys in Roadhouse though all need to like work on your insults, work on your comebacks, because your dialogue is very like, have you hurt yourself?
Yeah, your trash talk could use a little work, I think.
But I get it. I think Roadhouse definitely kind of deserves the following it's got. I think it deserves the hype. It's so much fun. It's so weird and so random. And like, it's Swayze. I had so much fun watching Swayze.
Yeah. I appreciated how complete of an experience it was, I guess. Like, I anticipated it being a movie where there's bar fights and seeing fight scenes are like the reason you go to see it. And it definitely had a lot of those peppered throughout that it keeps you interested and excited. But I didn't anticipate it having like something for everybody. Like it has all of the fight scenes. It has all of the stuff that you would normally expect from this kind of 80s action movie. But all at the same time, there are very drawn out, long, tender, romance scenes in it that I was like, this is a little bit too tender for like a 1989 action movie. This is certainly for the people that are seeing it because Patrick Swayze is in it, and they just saw Dirty Dancing and Ghost, and they are ladies, and they want to see him.
They want
sweet,
some
sweet
tenderness.
love.
They want some tenderness.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that this is a great movie that has something for everybody. That you can see a dude's throat get ripped out, and you can see him make sweet, sweet love to the doctor on the roof with the shingles on his butt, and that's
gotta
fine
be
too.
uncomfortable. I can't feel
You don't
good.
know till you try it.
Dude, it can't feel good.
You gotta try it out. Maybe it's a great thing.
I don't think so.
You get the cool air. You get
Well, the cool air is
forces.
that's not like the shingles. I mean, there's
You get the weird guy watching you the whole time.
You. Why would you?
All right. I don't think I have much else to say about this movie. I enjoyed
We're
it
ending
overall.
our dive into Roadhouse with shingle sex. All right.
Shingle sex. Try it once. That's all I say.
I'll let you be the one to do that, Jake.
Okay. I think the main takeaway, like you said, is exactly what you said at the very front, which was the neo-Western part of it. This movie would not hold up or hold together if it didn't have that archetype of that guy who comes into town, cleans up the town, kind of against his will. He's there for a job, ends up having to clean up the entire town, as becomes the hero or the sheriff or whatever, and then rides off into the sunset with the girl. That thing is great, and it will always be great, and I will like pretty much any movie that does it. So good on Roadhouse for doing that.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say you and I could see you and I becoming kind of obsessed with this movie down the line. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Give me 4 or 5 more viewings and I'll probably be right
It's
there.
like, I really feel this is going to be that kind of movie where we're just like, I didn't have anything else to watch. Popped in Roadhouse again. Best movie ever.
It's highly likely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we hinted to it earlier. Folks, my daughter keeps laughing at me for this. Like, she just...
Because you've been weeping openly for the last
She hasn't. She won't watch any of them with me because she knows that they're
of course
all
not.
tearjerkers. But yeah, folks, we're going to tell you our favorite movies that make us weep. Or as I like to put it, the movies that put sand and dust in our eyes.
Yeah. I got something in both my eyes.
Man, what's happening? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm so tired of crying at movies.
I know. It's not, we shouldn't have made it like a top 10 because watching a bunch of them to find my 10 favorite of them is a lot.
I'm like,
It's a lot.
It's exhausting. Like, I don't hate it. They're good movies. I like watching these movies, but it's
letting out a lot of emotions that I've been suppressing for a while.
Tiring.
And I like suppressing it. Don't make me let it out.
Well, and you're like extra feely these days. Good old children will do that to you.
Yeah, more than I've ever been in my whole life.
But yeah, so we're doing our top 10 tearjerker films. That should be a fun one to talk about next week.
Yeah. I think I have at least a couple of surprises that will be fun to bring up.
Dude, if you put Roadhouse on your top 10.
Okay, when Sam Elliott dies, it is the most impactful moment of the whole film. It's the soul of the movie. Exactly.
I'm not judging you.
And I felt it.
It's an easy target, so I'm gonna take advantage.
That's fine.
Sorry.
All right. Well, yeah, look forward to that. Thank you for listening to our Roadhouse discussion. Let us know what you think about Roadhouse and if you think it is silly or the best movie of all time. That seems to be the spectrum that we're working with. So I want to know where you fall. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Movie Boners or movieboners.com. You can call in and leave a voicemail. and we'll play it on the future episode of what you think, because we are honestly dying to hear from you what you have to say.
We're doing a super fun kind of deal on our merch right now. Make sure you put that promo code in, get 20% off your order. Hey, Jake, that's a cool sweater.
Oh, why, thank you. This isn't... okay, so full disclosure, if you go to movieboners.com and go to the merch store, we do have a Die Hard themed shirt like this, sweatshirt that says, "Now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho," for Christmas. Perfect holiday season sweater. But obviously, we didn't invent that phrase. It obviously comes from the movie Die Hard. We're not the only people selling a sweatshirt like this. I bought this a long time ago before we made one. But when I went to go find one a year or two ago, I had the hardest time finding one that even looked good, because a bunch of assholes just put the phrase on a shirt with the randomest font, and it doesn't even look like what's in the movie. So I painstakingly went through Photoshop and tried to make a perfect, as close as I could get, because I'm not a great graphic designer, but as close as I could get, capture the rendition of the Die Hard shirt like this. It is in our merch store. You can get it with 20% off if you use the code 100EPS, EPS, for episodes. So get yourself a Die Hard sweater. Get yourself whatever you want. And
cool
we want to say
it's
thank
some
you.
Fun shit.
Yeah.
So go make sure you do that. I don't really have anything.
I think that's all we have to say. Until next time.
Bam!